give this lecture. It's none other than our president herself, and she's going to talk about the cosmetics and cancer. Is the risk real? Over to you, Indira.
Thank you, Shanika. So, after listening to Nissan Sala's very nice lecture on the good of cosmetics, let's have a look at what are the possible bad effects of cosmetics. Actually, what prompted me to think of this topic is like about a year ago, Sri Lanka Medical Association conducted a symposium, media symposium for National Cancer Day. And they wanted us to talk about the cancer risk in cosmetics. So the search that, it was that prompted me to talk about this for this audience as well. So cosmetics and cancer, is the risk real? So let's first see, actually this is the definition of cosmetic from the point of view of a legal and practical point of view. So a cosmetic is any substance or preparation that's intended to be placed in contact with various external parts of the body or with the teeth or the mucous membranes of the oral cavity with the view to cleaning, perfuming, changing appearance, correcting body odors, protecting and keeping them in good condition. So the cosmetics can be applied on any external part of the human body, and actually it's mainly based on the target site of application and the intended main function. So the types of cosmetics, now you listen to Nissan Sala also, but you see toilet soaps fall into the category of cosmetics. Hair care products, including hair tints and bleachings and hair dyes, fall into that category. And deodorants and antiperspirants fall into this category. So there are certain things that we use on a regular basis which fall into the category of cosmetics. And remember, these products are not cosmetics. So now you saw in this list whitening products are there. And because we are now talking a lot about whitening creams and whitening products, I thought let's start with whitening creams and whitening products. So what are the usual ingredients in whitening creams? We know about hydroquinone, and we know that the accepted upper limit is probably exceeded in most of the products that are there in whitening creams. But please remember, actually in the definition of cosmetics and in all legal terms, hydroquinone, corticosteroids or heavy metals cannot be ingredients of a cosmetic. Therefore, if somebody is marketing or using these things in cosmetics, they are actually going against the law. But we have reasons to believe that all these things, hydroquinone, topical corticosteroids and heavy metals are there. Actually, the presence of heavy metals has been confirmed in even in Sri Lanka, and we are now trying to get the ITI to conduct testing for steroids, because we have reasons to believe that most of these products contain steroids. So we know these complications: the steroid-dependent phase, the uchronosis, poor wound healing, and the possibility of nephropathy with the presence of heavy metals. Right? So there are so many articles about possible adverse effects of whitening creams. Right? So one such thing is one case report of nephrotic syndrome, and you see the cream contained more than 2,000 times the allowed level of mercury. And actually this is an animal study, but see, the mercury content in the ovary tissues increased with number of cream applications and were highest in the ovaries of mice treated twice a day with Fair and Lovely. Right? So this is something that we consider to be a fairly safe thing. Right? So this was animal study, but there haven't been any human studies on this. What about hydroquinone? We usually believe that hydroquinone is a potential carcinogen. So let's see. According to this article from June 2005, for about 20 years now, the use of hydroquinone has been banned in cosmetics because of its midterm effects such as leukoderma and occupational vitiligo and exogenous sucranosis, not because of a potential cancer risk. Let's see what they say. Compounds which can cause DNA damage and mutation. So there is a possibility that hydroquinones may cause carcinogenesis, but there are no definite evidence to say that hydroquinone causes cancer. Again, like you see this now, this previous one, they were talking about potential health risk. 1 year later, there's another article coming up saying cancer bioassay data for hydroquinone demonstrate limited effects and are not sufficient to classify hydroquinone for human carcinogenicity. But anyway, remember, hydroquinone cannot be an ingredient in any cosmetic product. In spite of hydroquinone and retinoids being prescription-only drugs, you see, actually, I didn't want to use the brand name, but this is being sold over the counter. And actually, I came across this product, Baby Face, when one of my patients came with a red face after applying this. And this is, Baby Face is hydroquinone and tretinoin. And when I was looking for when I was doing a Google search to get an image of baby face, this is what I came across. Okay? So this is where the world is heading. How can I make my baby's skin fair? So remember that the world trend, the trend of the consumer is towards this. So we are actually trying to swim against the tide. The next controversial subject is glutathione. I know everybody knows about this, but I'm just reminding you. When you use glutathione, you are blocking the synthesis of phenylalanine, which gives rise to a brown face, and invariably you are increasing the synthesis of phenylalanine with its possible effects of having a more photosensitized face. Therefore, people who are using glutathione for the purposes of skin whitening are at higher risk of photosensitivity unless they use they engage in proper sunscreen use. So what about glutathione adverse effects? This is from 2016. The only safety data are for, all the glutathione trials are only for 4 to 12 weeks. Now, you know, glutathione, IV glutathione has been used as a treatment, antioxidant treatment for people who were on cisplatin treatment as a treatment for, they develop a neuropathy, and glutathione can reverse this neuropathy. So it was for that indication glutathione was introduced, not for skin whitening. And now we are trying to use the side effect as an indication. So actually, nowhere in the world is glutathione, IV glutathione recommended or registered as a skin whitening agent. And if you are using it for cancer chemotherapy-induced neuropathy, you are using it on a short-term basis. But if you want to change the skin color, you need to use it on a long-term basis. Therefore, the side effects, the possible side effects of long-term usage are not known to anyone. And also remember, this switch from brown to red melanin may lead to the potential risk of sun-induced skin cancers. Right? I tried to do a fairly extensive PubMed search, and that failed to reveal any articles directly linking glutathione to skin cancer. But Probably this is because skin whitening is not a registered indication of glutathione and there are no studies with long-term follow-up. So that's what we discussed. Right? What about like now when we talk about skin cancer, there are two types, melanoma and non-melanoma skin cancer. Again, when you do a search, the opinions differ. This says, now you see, advanced melanoma resists all current therapies and metastases in the liver are particularly problematic. Prevalent resistance factors include elevated glutathione. So this is about advanced melanoma. Therefore, they think glutathione can be an adverse factor in advanced melanoma. Whereas there are certain articles that say the certain gene defects with regards to glutathione may predispose to certain types of melanoma. So the evidence regarding the relationship between melanoma and glutathione is like both sides. So it doesn't say it's beneficial, it doesn't say, I mean, there are no definitive evidence to say that it is beneficial or bad. What about antioxidants? Now, this paper, again from 2014, says antioxidants can accelerate lung cancer progression in mice. So, and also that antioxidants can increase melanoma metastasis in mice. So, these are animal studies, there are no human studies, but still we have to be, I mean, we think antioxidants are beneficial. We don't think about bad effects of antioxidants. So, but we need to remember that as with regards to cancer, even the potentially good things may have bad effects. Do whitening creams as a whole cause cancer? This is a case series where they have found 8 cases associated with cosmetic skin whitening. Squamous cell carcinomas were localized to lichenoid lesions or exogenous or chronotic lesions on photo-exposed areas of the face, neck, or upper back. Right? So, do whitening creams cause cancer in Sri Lanka? We don't have any data. However, skin cancer incidence in Sri Lanka is on the rise. Now, these are the data from the National Cancer Registry. This is age-specific rates. As expected, skin cancer is higher in the later age groups, but here, the age-specific rates, you can see if you compare the rates of 1985 with 2010, you can see that there is an increase. So this is without considering whitening creams and other things. So what should be the dermatologist's role in skin whitening? Now, changing of skin color is a controversial subject. There are so many people who demand it. So there are no black and white guidelines, but we should not promote skin fairness or whitening, but consider individual cases on prevailing circumstances. So as a professional organization, this is SSCD's stand regarding glutathione. The bioavailability, the available evidence for efficacy of glutathione is low to very low. This is for all 3 formulations, IV, oral, and topical. The studies done so far are of questionable quality. Actually, this analysis was supported by, a professor in pharmacology analyzed all available data on oral glutathione, and her conclusion is that the studies are of very poor quality. Therefore, we can't say that there are studies supporting that. Yes, there are studies saying oral glutathione is efficacious, but they are of very poor quality. And there are no long-term safety data. The longest available is for 12 weeks only. And the doses recommended by the industry are not supported by clinical evidence. So, after, I'm sure you all have received this communication as an email. So, this is part of a letter we wrote to the NMRA regarding the SLCD's stand on glutathione. So, This was supported by the cosmetic subcommittee, and following extensive analysis of the existing studies, our recommendations are topical, borderline category 2A. Borderline category 2A is it's a borderline product and it is pharmacy only, no advertising. So all the oral and the topical ones we are suggesting to be classified as a borderline product where advertising is not allowed. Therefore, the industry will not be allowed to mislead the public. Whereas IV glutathione is not recommended. We don't have any evidence to say that it should be used. So these are our recommendations. Okay, moving on to lipsticks. Now there has been a lot, especially in the social media and email communications, people are talking about lipstick being hazardous because of the presence of heavy metals. So again, the results are not conclusive, but the results of HQ and HI indices showed that in more than 50% of the lipstick brands, there is a potential threat to consumer health due to the presence of these elements in lipstick. Again, it depends on how often you use and how long you keep the lipstick. Right? Again, concentrations and potential health risks of metals in lip products. Most of the tested lip products contain high concentrations of titanium and aluminium. Lead was detected in 24 products, that is 75%, with an average concentration of 0.36 to 0.39 ppm. Estimated intakes were more than 20% of ADIs derived for aluminium, cadmium, chromium, and manganese. So that means they do contain higher amounts of these heavy metals. But a meta-analysis failed to show that the heavy metals actually do cause cancer. Right? So still, we do not have convincing evidence to say that even though they may be having higher amounts, that they can cause cancer. Are there any risks for oral cancer? Now, this one is actually not for lipsticks, but for use of mouthwashes, especially alcohol-based mouthwashes. Again, they say it cannot be guaranteed. It cannot be. They cannot conclude that the use of mouthwashes represents an independent risk factor for development of head and neck cancer. However, the risk does increase when it occurs in association with other carcinogenic risk factors. So again, inconclusive evidence. Another, actually I think this doesn't talk much about anything. Let's move on to other things regarding breast cancer. Do antiperspirants cause breast cancer? Now, this is something I found on the net. You see, 99% of breast cancer tissue had traces of parabens. So, these are very alarming things that are circulating in the internet, especially over social media networks. This hypothesis was based on the high incidence of breast cancer in the upper outer quadrant, adjacent to the usual area of deodorant and antiperspirant application, and also involvement of parabens and aluminium salts as traditional components of a number of cosmetic products. But according to the articles that I came across, parabens are not a usual ingredient in antiperspirants. And also most of the studies were of poor quality, and their conclusions cannot be considered as evidence. So again, a review, a meta-analysis, a systematic review, deodorants, antiperspirant use. We have actually, their conclusion was that there is not enough evidence to conclude that antiperspirants and deodorants cause breast cancer. So are there any other cosmetic risk factors for breast cancer? Here comes the problem. Hair dye. There are several very large studies that have assessed this. So this is one from Finland, a population-based case control study of Finnish women. The results, after adjusting for potential confounders, the odds of breast cancer increased by 23% among women who used hair dyes compared to those who did not. And also they observed a significant trend between the odds ratio and cumulative use of hair dyes. So the longer you use it, the higher your risk. This is not the only study. Hair dye and chemical straightener use and breast cancer risk in a large US population of black and white women. Again, permanent dye use was associated with 45% higher breast cancer risk in black women and 7% higher risk in white women. Again, we are more at risk, probably in between the two. And among all participants, personal straightener use was associated with breast cancer risk, with higher risk associated with increased frequency. So the use of hair dyes, hair straighteners may have an implication on breast cancer. Some more studies. A meta-analysis. A total of 8 case control studies published between 1980 and 2017. The adjusted relative risk for women using hair dyes was 1.18. This indicates an 18.8% increased risk of future development of breast cancer among hair dye users. Do hair dyes cause other types of cancer? About bladder cancer, there is no evidence, but there is some evidence, a slightly higher risk for leukemia in men. Okay, so how should we approach this hair dye use in this context? I'm sure, like here, we have to think about, like, we can be philosophical, but we are all using hair dyes, right? And would we stop using hair dyes because of this evidence? I think in today's context, a pragmatic approach would be, if a patient asks you about the risks, maybe we should explain about these risks and let them take the decision. But I would personally think twice before advising hair dye use for young individuals, since duration of use increases the risk. Does talc cause ovarian cancer? This is the other thing where there is some evidence to say that talc use is not good. So perennial talc use and ovarian cancer, a systematic review and meta-analysis. There is a consistent association between perennial talc use and ovarian cancer. This is why now we are advising mothers not to use talc baby powder on their baby girls especially. So these were the study evidence that I could come across regarding cosmetics. So the take-home messages are, all cosmetics should be used with caution and on a need basis. Use of whitening creams and other whitening products should be discouraged. Hair dyes and other hair care products may play a role in breast cancer, so we need to be careful about using them. Use of talc in perineal areas may increase the risk of ovarian malignancy. There are some studies to say that use of antioxidants may stimulate tumor growth, but we need to remember that all these are based on animal studies, not based on human studies. So this is where we stand regarding the bad effects of cosmetics. Thank you.
Thank you, Indira, for that very informative lecture. There's time for questions.
What about the males who use hair dye? So
Actually, actually most of these studies, they talked about women. Actually, they have followed up cohorts of women, not men. But if we think about the higher risk, and also, I haven't come across anything, but if we consider the bad prognosis of breast cancer, if it occurs in men, I think the same should apply to men as well.
Not spared.
Probably.
Men are not spared, included.
And also remember, Kahawita, the risk for leukemia was for men, not for women.
We can do a study among the dermatologists.
particular ingredient they have told in the hair dye that causes this? No.
No, because they were actually talking about hair colors and relaxants and everything. Mostly, I mean, then again, we have to remember these were studies conducted in European countries, especially that Finnish study. Finnish are mainly, they don't have dark, black hair. So probably the ingredients they're talking about may be different from the chemicals that we are using. So I didn't come across any studies done in Asian countries talking about this. So maybe the risk, again, we have to think about that fact as well.
So I think basically what we have to tell the patient to avoid these procedures at a young age as much as possible.
Yes, because I think again that is a practical problem, because now isn't it your experience that more and more young people are coming asking for treatments for premature graying of hair, right? So would you let your son or daughter use hair dye at 18 years of age? That would be a question to answer.
I think your talk opened lot of topics for research. Different about lipstick, about hair dye, about antiperspirants, talc, how many things.
Yes, madam, and also all these wrong messages that are being circulated.
What is the bottom line about antiperspirant? That we must
There is
avoid
no
it.
evidence, madam.
We must
There is no
avoid it.
evidence
Very
that,
fear-mongering.
yes,
There's a lot of fear mongering with this social
Yes.
media, and it is important that we put things right and tell the
yes,
patient
that is one reason why I wanted to talk about this topic. Because when such a thing is there, especially now the messages can be spread very quickly. Now, especially something like that, the ad that I showed you, the paraben thing. So people will believe because they don't know the scientific basis behind this, and when they use a word like a little bit of science, people think yes, this is true. So they start spreading all these things. So I think those are one, like we should know what the real scientific basis behind all these things is.
Thing about the hair dye is now it comes in a developer and the dye.
Yes.
Usually the oxidized dye is not absorbed and doesn't cause any allergy.
Hmm.
So one thing to go is to keep the time minimum period.
Yes.
Use a very less concentration as possible.
Yes.
So if the concentration is higher and if you keep it for a longer time,
Yes.
there's more chance of even dye allergy and the absorption and all these.
Yes, and probably like now we have the Sri Lanka standards, and like for hair dyes, Sri Lanka standards have been formulated, and in that also we have actually discouraged the use of hair shampoos, dye shampoos.
But there has been a very huge pressure on the SLS side for this hair shampoos.
Dye shampoos, dye shampoos.
Because it has higher concentration and when you use the shampoo, the scalp will absorb.
Yes.
Not like the creams you mix.
Yes. Because with the cream, we usually try to make sure that it's only on the hair shafts. But the shampoo you will apply on the scalp and keep and wash off. So the risks are higher. But still, according to the manufacturers, now the largest percentage of the hair dye market is in dye shampoos. Because people also want quick results. So they were actually they were strongly opposing the SLSI's decision not to let them use the word dye shampoo.
Because that word itself, the people think that is less harmful because
Yes.
it's a shampoo.
Yeah, and also about similar to the fear mongering, there's another thing going on about when they use the dye shampoo ads, they are talking about you can get this in 5 minutes time. And this has just before board meeting. And also there are no side effects, like the advertisements depict these things as very, very safe. But probably dye shampoos give higher side effects than the usual dyes, the creams and the gels.
Ideally, in all hair dye
before each application. Yes. Yes.
So younger generation, those who have few premature gray hair, we can advise them to use the natural henna powder. That will give a slight reddish
The color that they
color.
don't like.
Yes.
That will look nice also for younger people. So they can postpone using the hair dye.
Yes, and anyway, I think, madam, now the trend for younger people is to color their hair, not to make them black. So probably they can make use of the fashion trends rather than thinking about making the hair black. I mean, they can do it as a highlight.
But what they want is that blonde color. So
Yeah.
therefore you have to bleach it first and then only put, get that
Hmm.
color, no?
Hmm.
So that's also not safe for young hair. Then a lot of people come and ask me, the laser gives you cancer. Whether laser is,
That's a common
that's a
question
frequent
from-
question that is asked. Is it the safe thing to do? What is your view, Indira?
Madam, I haven't checked on that actually. So we have reached the end of the 28th annual academic sessions of the Sri Lanka College of Dermatologists, and as the last speaker and also as the president of the college, I would like to thank everyone who supported us to make this event a success. I mean, this was not an easy task. The conference was postponed several times, and we had to change our plans several times. And during these difficult times, all of you stayed with us. So I must say a big thank you to everybody, and also a message to my young colleagues. I mean, you saw how you could contribute even in difficult times. So please remember, we need to keep the standards at the college high, whether, I mean, irrespective of all the difficulties, the adverse circumstances that we have to face. So, because these are beyond our control, but still, we need to keep the light of learning burning as much as possible. Thank you.